You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. What works for other people does not have to be the thing that works for you. You are special, you are unique, you are the way that you are for a reason, and who you are is magnetic and beautiful and brilliant exactly as you truly are. So if something that you've been working on is no longer working for you, it is okay to let it go and to try something else. Hello there, and welcome to the A Bit From Within podcast with me, Felicia Marty. I am a self-care specialist as well as a certified astrologer, and I work with clients every day to feel more comfortable owning who they truly are and to help find little changes that can lead to big shifts in their lives. I teach people how to love and cherish themselves instead of feeling forced to be somebody that they're not. And if this is something that you resonate with, then be sure to explore my offers on abitfromwithin.com, where you can book a natal chart discovery session with me, download my guides to using the moon for monthly self-care inspiration and goal setting. And of course, stay tuned to today's episode where I share with you how to look back in order to move forward, especially in the areas that you might be feeling stuck at in life. If you are new to listening to the A Bit From Within podcast, I would love it if you would hit subscribe. And if after you hear this episode, if you feel moved to share a review or hit that 5-star rating, I would appreciate it so very much. And in full transparency, which you know you're always going to get from me, it is so uncomfortable for me to ask for things like that. One of the things that I so deeply struggle with, especially working in the online space or in social media, is that you have to do a lot of self-promotion, and that is not always a comfortable place to be in. So as you hear me asking for things like that and actually recording a more thorough introduction, I hope you know that is me doing my work and trying to put myself out there in ways that I'm not always comfortable doing. So if there are areas like that in your life, I hope you feel like you can be brave enough to do those same things too. I have to share with you guys that I have been feeling so much better in this last week. If you've been tuning in for a while, you know that were most of July, there was a lot of COVID stuff. The first week of July, we thought we had been exposed, and so my partner and I were separated from each other in different rooms in the house, just kind of trying to make sure we didn't get sick, or if I was to get sick, that he wouldn't get sick. And then lo and behold, right after we were, in the clear and feeling good, we were exposed at another event and we both got it. And then most of July, I feel, was kind of consumed by having COVID and all of the things that happen when you get sick. I think whether it's COVID or the flu or a cold or whatever else, when you come down to something, it really does put like this hard stop moment in your life, which for many of us is a good thing because we need to slow down and have time to rest and recover. But when you are constantly on the go or you have a lot going on, having to deal with that and truly, but I guess by having to deal with that, I mean not being able to deal with any of that, and every single day stuff just gets pushed further and further back that you have to address and deal with when you feel better, that can feel so overwhelming. And it can really take you out of the flow of your life, like even little things like the appointments that you had scheduled, whether it's like to see a chiropractor or a massage therapist or a doctor, all of those things have to get shoveled around and then you have to reschedule them. And then the things that you already had coming up, like those things don't go away. So everything just kind of get jumbled around. And I'm definitely feeling that a little bit. And I was feeling very stressed out moving towards the end of July. And then something kind of just shifted within me where I really had this breakthrough where I'm like, I have to approach life in a different way. What I've been doing is not working. And so I am ready to reset. That was the topic of last week's podcast, was like how to find your reset moment. And I tell you what, you guys, I It is not always the case that what I share in this podcast ends up being 100% translated in my life. Like sometimes, I think like any of us, you have the best intentions going in, and then sometimes they move through and they're like actioned, and other times they kind of enter this ongoing conversation that you're still figuring out. And whether that's because you're not quite ready to break through, or maybe it's because life happens and something comes in and kind of distracts you or is a bigger priority and you have to address that. I think sometimes that happens for me too. But I do feel like I was so committed to this reset. Maybe it's because I was coming off of being sick. Maybe it's because I'm in a really like high stakes place in my personal life. But I feel motivated. And the best part is that after last week's episode, one of the main things that I wanted to get across was that the reset moment isn't always new year, new me, right? Like so often we fall to this pressure where it's like, it has to be a clean start and then it's all or nothing. And I didn't want to approach life this way. I really am committed to being grounded and being realistic. And part of being realistic is understanding that not everything changes at once, and that the more that you're trying to accomplish, the more you have to have kind of a slow, intentional rollout, and that you really have to be committed to what you're doing and understanding if it's actually working, if things are moving in the way that you want them to, or if they're not. And if they're not, like, what are you going to do about it? So there is a lot of work that goes into this. And so the more that you're trying to change and like be kind of black or white about it, the more you have to tune in and manage all of that. And I think in most cases, that is unrealistic because we have a lot going on in our lives and a lot of components to manage. And we are human beings that can't just up and change like that, at least not the majority of the time. Maybe if you're lucky, might be a couple times in your life where enough motivation and force and probably luck allows you to just 100% change overnight. But most of the time it takes really intentional decision-making, choice-making, and commitment to what you know you're going after. And it takes a lot of hard work. So with that being said, part of my reset moment that I'm trying to really embrace in my life has more to do with slowing down and actually just planning. And that feels so weird to say because I've always pictured myself as a very type A, perfectionist, overachiever. I try to be really thought out about things and really diligent. And I do feel like I'm a good planner. I'm very practical. I'm very organized. I have a lot of good ideas, especially when I'm talking to other people. I do feel like, and I don't know if we all are like this, but I feel like when it comes to chatting with other people, I can just really see on them like what works, what doesn't work, what lights them up, where are the blockages, what can be tweaked. I really feel strong in all of that. And sometimes when it comes to ourselves, it is so much harder to do that because we have our own baggage. We all have reasons why we are the way we are. And so I feel like what I'm trying to do in general is just kind of soften some of those areas where I've built up such strong resistance. Maybe that's a good word. There's so many places that I've built up that I'm like, well, this is why I am the way that I am. And in order to find change, you have to find softness so that things can actually, be more malleable and it can take a new form and it can change. So that is one of the things that I am also working on right now is just finding softness in the places that I've been really rigid and being really curious. Why do I feel this way? And a lot of these thoughts are directly related to the heart of today's episode, which is the ways that I've been trying to look back to find like little clues that can help me move forward. So I've got lots to share on that with you. But first, let me share a little bit about what is happening astrologically this week in the universe And you can just take these as like little seeds to plant in your mind, things to keep in mind as you move through this week, and maybe it'll help you focus on things a little bit differently. So today I'm recording this on August 1st, which is Monday, and there is this really fascinating, unusual conjunction that's happening. Now, in astrology, when I say the word conjunction, what that means is it means that different planets are lining up in the sky in the exact same place. So conjunction means together. And the planets that are lining up are Uranus, Mars, and the north node of the moon. So what does this mean? Here's kind of like a Cliff Notes version of what's going on. And I'm going to try to keep it super simple so that it doesn't overwhelm you. And, with almost any transit, the effects of it you're going to feel for a little while. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because you might feel the effects of this as you look back from today over the last couple weeks, and also feel the effects of it for the next maybe like 10 to 15 days. So the first thing you should know is that Uranus is a planet where sometimes it brings a stress factor. It tends to bring unexpected change, sometimes disruptions. It can also bring like a zaniness, like an unexpected, unusual way of looking at things. And it's overall a pretty slow-moving planet. It usually spends about 7 years in each of the zodiac signs, so it does not move very quickly, which is why this is kind of a bigger deal. Now, Mars is a planet that is very commonly associated with intense masculine energy. It is kind of like the planet of war, of action, of passion, of assertiveness, expressing yourself, competition, external energy force. And then we have the north node of the moon, which is always usually associated with major life lessons and opportunity to choose a higher path. So thinking of those three themes combined and happening all at once, it's easy to see why a lot of astrologers and people right now are talking about what a possibly volatile time this will be. Now, you guys know me, I don't like looking at things in a kind of gloomy way or like just using sound bites to try to grab people's attention. Like, yeah, I could be like, oh my God, it's one of the most challenging days of the year. I truly don't believe that. I really think that, yes, there are some big things up for people right now. In fact, I know, like, as I say that, I picture so many of the conversations that I've recently had with people where really big moments of change are happening in their lives right now. But what I want to encourage you is that, like with anything in life, our lives move forward naturally. It is very, very few and far between that we have like real lightning flash moments in our lives where everything is suddenly different. So that probably will not be the case for you, and that's not a bad thing. In fact, what I suggest doing is looking and making a list of what is going on right now. What are things that are happening that you never expected to happen, and how are they challenging you to think differently about where your life is headed and the possibilities of the future? If you can do that and you can live with more intention, just kind of slow down right now, I think this can be a very powerful and productive time in your life. Now, you're probably wondering, like, is this something that you're going to be telling me about next year? Is this something that happens all the time? Like, how everyone jokes that Mercury's always in retrograde, which that is a very common occurrence. That happens 3 to 4 times a year. That is common. This is really not that common. In fact, Uranus and the North Node, they meet up together. Like, we're not even factoring the Mars thing, but Uranus and the North Node, they do meet up about once every 15 years. So not so common. But the other unusual part about this conjunction, why people always call some of these bigger conjunctions these once in a lifetime moments, is because they will not meet up together again in the sign of Taurus until like sometime in like 2300 something. I don't even know how to say that because I was going to say like 2300, which I guess is also true. but I've never been really good with numbers. I always, I joke often in kind of a self-deprecating way about like when people start talking numbers to me, I'm like, well, I'm a theater major, you guys. And I've never been good with numbers. Like even when I think back to it, I think about like speed drills. Did you guys ever have speed drills in school where you'd have to like do math super fast? That was my literal worst nightmare. It was horrible. Anyway, if that really resonates with you right now, like I said, take some time diving into that. It might be something you want to explore. But in general, just looking at the big picture of life right now, one of the places that you're always going to probably can count on me chatting about is what's happening with the moon. And right now I'm paying extra attention to it because last week when the new moon came, I started this project with a small group of people where we are all tracking the moon and really diving into it as the self-care experiment. And I know a lot of you who listen to the podcast are part of this group. So a couple reminders there. Right now, we've kind of finished moving through the 4 days of like where it's a real new moon. Even though the moon is always changing, it usually takes about 3 or 4 days until we move into an official new phase. So today, the moon is officially a waxing crescent moon. And if you look up into the sky, in fact, last night I was out there looking up at the stars and I saw the moon and it was this really cool, just little tiny red sliver. And it was so cool. So what happens during a waxing crescent phase? This is a time when your energy is actually starting to build. So this is a great time that if you've really rested over the last few days, if you had some lower energy, or if you spent some time planning and really being more intentional with your life and, what's up ahead. I know a lot of people were looking to this August 1st on a Monday as like, okay, new month, new me. A lot of people were thinking about this. This is awesome energy to be moving into with the presence of this waxing crescent moon, because this is about your intention and your energy moving forward and building momentum. This is also a time that it's really good to be open to new ideas and just to be open to your intuition. It's also a good time to stay flexible. And this will kind of be the energy throughout the beginning of the week. And towards the end of the week, we're going to be working up towards that first quarter moon. And when that happens, then it's kind of a time where I suggest looking at balance. Is your life balanced right now? And if not, where are you off balance? Sometimes this can show up as a tension or a resistance in your life. And so look at that place and say, okay, well, what can I either add or subtract to find balance? This is probably a little bit more of an actual problem solving time. Like instead of just like generally kind of thinking like, oh, well, where can I make improvements in my life? It's like, no, like what is at hand right now and how can I fix this? So just keep that in mind as we move all the way towards the full moon, which won't be until, I believe it's August 11th. So just keep that in mind. And, if nothing else, what I want you to think about and always come back to is like, as you're living your life, find those moments to slow down, and looking up to the sky is one of the best ways you can do that. And usually when you do that, especially if you're out, like letting your dog out at night, or you're just curled up on your back patio and you peek up to the sky, if you can spot the moon, it's a really good reminder and kind of plugs you back into the work that you're doing, into your intention setting, into your self-care practices. And it's like nature's way of keeping you remembering, like, you can evolve, you can change, you can grow, you can shine bright, you can let go, you can retreat. All of the phases that you're going to go through are totally normal. They're part of your process. They're valid and they're important. And of course, if this topic really means something to you or it's starting to speak to you in a new way, I've got so much information on how to use the moon for different rituals. You can go to abitfromwithin.com/free guide and join our email list to get a ritual guide that you can use any month, any lunar cycle, any new moon, any full moon. Or you can join our Patreon page where you can get ad-free episodes of this podcast each week, along with a monthly copy of our kind of like lunar self-care guide that goes really in depth into what are the astrological themes going on with the new moon, the full moon. Sometimes I throw in other things like if Mercury goes retrograde, or like right now, like how to manage this Uranus North Node conjunction. And then like how to look ahead for like the next season with the sun and using those ideas for self-care. So it's a really fun tool. And those that use it each month from Patreon, like they all rave about it. People love this because it's a really unique and also simple way to think outside of the box and approach the new month ahead. And one of the things that I just will totally geek out about, and then I promise this is the last thing I'll say, and then I will be quiet, but it's a really good reminder that because we use the zodiac sign also inside of all of this, it adds a flavor that is going to add balance to your life at one point or another, because every single zodiac sign is absolutely unique in the kind of element and quality that it has. So there are 4 elements: fire, water, earth, and air. And there are 3 qualities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And not one zodiac sign shares 2 of those traits with anybody else. And so as we use astrology for self-care inspiration, it really helps you get outside of what you normally would do, or helps you unite with your preference. So usually when you get the guide, you're like, ooh, this is right up my alley. I love being outside in nature. I love gardening, like maybe it's an earth month. And then all of a sudden you'll get it on a fire month, like now is a fire month. And you'll be like, okay, like, well, maybe I should try salsa dancing, or maybe I should just like schedule a night drinking wine with my girlfriends, something like that. And that will happen each and every month, where depending on your preferences, you'll either be united with something that is really interesting to you or kind of like a co-interest, or it'll be something that helps you think outside of the box and do something new, which can always add balance to your life. Okay. That's enough. I could talk about this literally all day. It gets me so excited. But let's take a quick break, and then we're going to dive back into looking back in order to move forward. So, anybody else here feel like their life kind of semi-revolves around food? Maybe I'm the only one raising my hand. Probably not, because so many of us love food, love eating, look forward to different kind of meals, look forward to dinner, look forward to planning the next meal. I feel like, especially when I'm on vacation, like you can always count on me like getting into the vacation by figuring out places to go eat and enjoy. And so for me, food and diet and health is a big topic that's up for me right now, and that is a big part of this reset moment that I'm wanting and craving in my life. I want to make changes with how I am interacting with food on a regular basis. And I won't lie and say that I don't wish that weight loss wasn't a part of this reset. I think that a lot of us crave that for good or bad reasons, right? And I really want to be transparent about that, because there are still so many of us that carry so much shame around how our bodies look. And I feel like I just want to be the most vicious warrior. Like whenever I think about this topic, I almost feel like, I don't know, putting like big machete knives in my hand so that I can just feel strong when it comes to me feeling like my body is not beautiful and good enough exactly as it is right now, no matter the number on the scale, no matter the number of my pant size or my shirt size, no matter what. I want to viciously love my body how it is. And like I've said before, I always want to make space for feeling like I can also own and change and work on my body in the ways that feel right for me at any given time. And there are seasons in our life where it is much easier to focus on finding more strength in your body for, different kind of health routines, for different kind of, not diet in the terms of like losing weight, being on a diet, but diet in the sense of like, these are the things that I'm going to eat for health reasons, for social reasons, for whatever reasons. This is my diet in the terms of like, this is what I'm eating. And there are also real seasons in our life where that is the last thing we are thinking about. And we are maybe, again, no judgment here, but we are clinging to food for comfort. We are eating for survival, where we are so stressed out that our body is turning everything we eat into resources that we can live off of later, because literally that is how stressed out we are. And so we aren't able to make the same kind of progress with our health goals during those seasons. And sometimes our bodies really change during that time. Either way, however, for me, my body has changed by gaining weight. For some people, when they're really stressed out, they lose weight and they are underweight and they are not as strong as they need to be. And here's the thing, is that this topic is a stressful one, and I promise it is not the only thing that I'm going to be talking about, but it is the introduction to this place in my life where I have been thinking about looking back in order to move forward. And the reason why is because part of my reset moment right now is feeling like I am more in control of making decisions around food. And it has been a source of chaos in my life because my partner, who I live with and share a home with and share groceries with and eat meals with, he has been super sick over this past year. And of course, anytime that you're talking about health, you're usually also talking about diet. So for him, for a lot of the year, this year, he was on a low histamine diet. And I just could not approach that the same way that he did. So this is where it starts to turn into not just a conversation about food, but a conversation about everything in life. This is a real bit from within. This is my story. My partner is one of those people who could eat the same thing every single day or a variation of it and not mind. He does not need the kind of variety in his diet that I need. He could eat, and he was eating, he'd eat a grilled chicken breast with carrots and a sweet potato, or with broccoli. And then the next day he'd eat steak with some variation of vegetables. And he easily can intermittent fast. It is no thing for him. I am not the same way. I am literally so different. I really crave variety. Not only do I want to eat different things every single day, and I have an occasional, hyperfixation. In the summer, I really love pasta salad, so I make that a lot, or eat a lot of watermelon. I definitely have little things that I get hyperfixated on. But in general, I want to eat a lot of different things, whether it's something spicy or something savory, or, I guess I always thought about meal planning more in terms of the different, how you can change it up. One day we'll have spaghetti, and the next day we can have some fajitas, and then the next day we could do or meat and potatoes, and then that kind of variety. And I'm also the kind of person that I have tried to do intermittent fasting, and I just don't know that it really works for me. When I wake up, I am very food motivated. I like the idea of okay, when is it time for breakfast? That is something I look forward to each morning. I really, and honestly, throughout the day, I really enjoy the moments where I get to have a snack, where I can come back to food and have dinner. Or even, as my godson likes to say, second dinner, which is what you eat after you eat dinner. And I'm on board with that too. And so you can imagine when you have two people who are so different in how they approach food, that it can cause some problems as far as being on the same team and having a plan. So I feel like Dave and I do this dance when it comes to meal planning, where he really wants to be this simple, rigid, mind over matter, just that's his approach. And my approach is okay, well, I know what I need. I need variety. I need different things. I need to really watch portions. I need to know what I'm going to be able to eat and have a lot of choices. This is what I want. And those things are just two very different paths. And Dave and I, we've been together for almost 6 years, where August is our 6th year anniversary. So we've had a lot of time together where we've gone through different ups and downs. And I was really thinking back to the beginning of our relationship. When we first met, we were on a really great track of like eating really clean. We were going to the gym a lot together. We were working out a lot together. And I was in pretty good shape then, and I was feeling really good in my body. And so lately, I've been trying to think back to like, well, what were we eating and what was like life like then? And how can I embrace some of those things that were clearly working then and like see if I can help address like part of the problems of what's not working well now? And this question, it's such a powerful question. Because no matter what you are working on in your life, if there has been a time in your life where something was working really well for you, there are clues there, like there are keys to the problem that you're facing right now. And as I asked myself this question around the food thing, I had a lot of big breakthroughs in the subject. And I will say that one of the best things that I did for myself in trying to figure this out is I talked about it with other people who know me and who are part of the conversation. So I had a lot of these conversations over the weekend with Dave, who clearly knows me and is on this journey with me. And I also had this conversation with my sister. And I didn't realize that she was kind of like this missing like link that I literally took for granted. And the reason why is because I actually lived with her and she lived with Dave and I in the beginning of our relationship. And actually it was back in 2014, which, oh my gosh, was already 8 years ago, when I had to move back in with my parents after several years of being, out on my own. My life was kind of collapsing. Was going through my Saturn return, okay? And at this point, she was also living at home. She was in school. We started working at the same place. Like I got a job at Apple where she was also working. And then we moved out together and then we moved in with Dave. And so we spent a lot of time together. And she had a special insight into not only what life was like at then, but she also is my sister and she knows me really well. And so this weekend when we were catching up, I brought this up to her. I'm like, I'm really trying to figure out, what was going on for me then and what's different now. And I think she kind of meant it as a joke at first. And she's like, what you're missing is me. But then I kind of realized, I'm like, holy crap, you're actually right. Because my sister, first of all, if you know anything about human design, you should know that she is a manifester. And if you don't know what that means, that's okay. Basically, what you should know about my sister is an idea generator. She always has a plan. She always knows what she wants. She easily puts things into action. And I'm a generator and I take other people's ideas and then I just execute them. And I had this huge revelation when she said this. And then I was actually able to go back and chat about it with Dave because I'm like, oh my gosh, she is the missing link. During that time, she would have an idea about what to make for dinner. And then I would just be able to make it. And I didn't have to do any of the mental labor around meal planning. I mean, occasionally, a couple times a week, we'd be like, whoa, where should we go? Oh, let's go to grab something from Whole Foods or let's go get some burritos or, whatever. I can do that. I'm really good at making those choices. But as far as meal planning would go, a lot of the ideas of what to make and whatnot came from her. Oh, this was such a breakthrough because what I realized is that the idea of actually meal planning is extremely stressful for me. It's really hard for me to commit to what I want to eat when I want so much variety. And I also realized that in the past, 5 years or so, especially since I started working full-time on my own, that the amount of stress that I feel on a day-to-day basis and where my mental labor is, what I'm trying to manage and hold space for and figure out, it is so occupied that I don't have anything left for really concentrating on what I've been eating. And so I feel like all of these forces kind of happened around 2017 into 2018, where And they happened little by little so that I didn't notice the changes. And there's so many factors to this. There's the trying to get on the same page with like your partner that you're moving in with. And like Dave and I were really in the beginning of our relationship. We were trying to do fun things with food. Or then we went through a period where like we were all so stressed out and was just like survival mode with food. And then he has his preferences and I have my preferences, and then our schedules would be different. And, you just make all, like I said, little by little changes get made. And then all of a sudden, a pandemic hits, and then that affects your life. And then a couple of years later, you're looking at yourself in the mirror thinking, how did I get here now when I used to be somewhere else? And again, I really want to be clear that I'm saying this from a place of self-power and not self-judgment, because I love my body and I choose to have love for my body. And I also refuse to feel like I'm not good enough based on like any of the things I shared before. And so I have to bring that back in because it matters so much in any kind of body conversation. So in full transparency, I don't have all the answers because this is an ongoing problem that I am trying to solve. As far as how I'm working to solve it right now, I have filled my fridge for the week with easy go-to snacks that are healthy. And I'm trying to get back to something that has worked for me in the past, which, again, I hope this is not a long story like the one I just told, but just to give a little bit more context. In 2005, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome. There was not a lot of information about that. I spent some years working with an endocrinologist who put me on a lot of medication, and it didn't really help me with my hormone issues. And so I decided to move away from those meds and treat it with food. And I had really embraced essentially a low carb diet. I cut out sugar, starches, bread, rice, like heavy carb things. And it worked really, really well for my body. My body really naturally, over a long period of time, like over 2 years, I ended up losing like 40 pounds. And then from there, I started, being able to do more stuff with my body and got into yoga. And then I lost probably like another 20 pounds over another 2 or 3 years. So all of this was really slow weight loss. And I was feeling really good and so proud of what I had accomplished. And so again, looking back to move forward, one of the things that I am getting back to is once again embracing those lower carb diets. And I'm struggling with this a little bit. I do think that there's some areas in my life that I need to be a little bit more black or white with, like a little bit more all or nothing. And that is kind of a major area that I need to do, especially around sugar, because right now I have been so stressed with what I have going on in my life that I've been really relying on sugar as a treat to get me through different days. So, end of a long day, run into Sprouts, grab some like blue raspberry twists or something like that. Or I'm going grocery shopping and I'm like, you know what, Felicia, you would love a chocolate donut with your coffee that's out in the car. And I do. And I have enjoyed that treat a lot over the last year. And again, I don't say this with any judgment. The thing and the place that I've had to come to in my life is more just this acceptance around like, I get to choose what I want. And for the last couple of years, I've been choosing comfort. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, the last couple of years have been really, really hard. And those moments that I chose comfort were things that I needed. And I felt like I needed them, and I didn't have another way of coping at that time. It was kind of a coping strategy. And there's probably, people out there who would hear that and like want to try to shame me about that. And I'm not going to feel shame about it. Instead, what I'm trying to shift to is that right now, from where I'm sitting and I'm thinking about what I want, I'm wanting to start a family. As I do that, I want to move forward with different goals. I want to be in a lighter body. I want to be in a stronger body. I want to be in a body that is a little bit more attuned with their hormones. Not a little bit, a lot actually. I want to be in a lot more optimal shape with my hormones. This matters to me. And so in order to have that, I have to eliminate some of the creature comforts, and I have to find new ways to give myself comfort, because you can't just not address your needs. So I've got to get a little bit more creative and find other ways to meet that. And I'm looking forward to that. And I'm really trying to meet this process with a sense of hope, optimism, and creativity, because I think you need all of those things with moving ahead. Now, I just want to say, obviously, you might not be in a place in your life where food is a place that you are stuck, or your body is a place that you are stuck. So how does this apply to you if you are trying to figure out where you're moving ahead to? And I want to say that, like, you can look back to move ahead in so many areas of your life. You can do this with, your career. When I was moving ahead in my career, what were some of the things that I was doing? How much time was I spending working on myself? Was I going to classes? Was I networking? You can look back and figure out what worked for you in order to move forward. And a lot of times, you guys, it's not that what we've been doing recently are bad strategies. I really think that for a lot of us, it's just that the strategies that we're doing might work better for other people than they actually work for us. And that's really hard. And we're allowed to have some major feelings about that, because, again, if I go back to the food example, I've felt really freaking frustrated that there are people out there who could eat a donut every day and not have it impact them the way that it impacts me. That makes me kind of mad, because I want to enjoy sugar and I want to enjoy treats. That's something that I want. And hopefully, I'll be able to figure out that creative way that it can work for me. But the same thing, it's like, for some people, they are just natural networkers. And there are other people who are like, I've been trying this networking thing for the past 3 years and I haven't gotten anywhere, and it's not helping me grow my business. And again, this is something that I specialize in, is helping people to understand that what works for other people does not have to be the thing that works for you. You are special. You are unique. You are the way that you are for a reason, and who you are is magnetic and beautiful and brilliant exactly as you truly are. So if something that you've been working on is no longer working for you, it is okay to let it go and to try something else. And trying something else might be, like I'm suggesting, kind of looking back in the places in your life where you've had success. That could be in the same area, or it could be a different area. If you have a way that you've, made huge improvements, like with your budget, with how you've managed money, why can't you use that same strategy on a different area of your life that you're wanting to see improvements in? Like, you have to learn how to crack your own code, essentially. And there's so many areas, you guys, that we want to see improvements in our life. And it's really easy to get lost in the minutia of thinking like everything has to improve all at once. But I would say, like, just don't, that's a losing strategy, okay? So the best thing you can do is try to bring your analytical brain on board. And honestly, like, my go-to is list making. What I would suggest is start to make yourself a list. This could be a list of places you feel stuck at in your life, or it could be just like a list of areas that matter to you, like managing money, creativity, career, relationship, play, having fun, like socialness, being social. Sorry, I got a little lost there trying to figure out the right word, but like, connecting with friends, like that might be an area of your life that you want to see different improvements in. Or it could, of course, be health or fitness. And what I want you to remember is that, yes, while you can, listen to this podcast and be inspired, or you can go to Google or Facebook or see Instagram and see what your friends are doing. You can go to Pinterest and get ideas on meal planning and whatnot. But every time you look outside of yourself, you have to go in with this grain of salt and remember that, like, that idea might work for you and it might not. Or it could partially work for you if you adapted it in certain ways. And you have to remember that, because there are millions of people out there who are going to try to solve a specific problem for you, and they're going to say it like, if you do this, this will be solved. And you have to just remember to not fall for those traps, because there is no single one way to do anything that would work for every single person. But as you look back at your own life and you think about the moments that you've had really big successes, and even thinking about the things that don't work, or spending time thinking about the times when things really started to change and maybe knock you off course. And maybe off course isn't the right word, because usually as certain things are falling apart, like other things are falling together. And so our lives are usually this variation of that, this cyclical process where as certain things come together, other things fall apart, and then we kind of have to go back and kind of pick up those pieces, and then things keep evolving, and there's always something for us to work on and be open to and not fix. That's something that if my therapist was listening to this, she would be proud that I said that, because it's not always about fixing things. It's really about figuring out how to make things work for you. You change. You're not the same person that you were. So when I say look back, I don't mean snap yourself back into your old self, because who you are now is hopefully better. I like to think that anybody who's listened to this, at least this far in the podcast, like I imagine that you are somebody who has worked really hard to evolve with yourself and evolve your life and to get closer to your dreams and your goals. And so remember that you're not trying to go back to who you used to be. You're different now. Maybe you're a parent now. Maybe you're in a different career. Maybe you've made different, opened your heart up to love in a new way. Maybe you have a partner that you're growing your life with now, and that has changed you from who you used to be. We're not looking back in order to go back. We are looking backwards to find keys of truth, of stability, of inspiration, and things that made sense to us at one point that we can glean information from and figure out how to work it into our lives now. So, I guess if I were to give you a tiny piece of homework assignment, which is not a normal thing for the A Bit From Within podcast, but I'm just feeling like sharing this with you, it would be if you could look back at one area of your life where things were just really flowing in a way that felt really good for you, what were some of the factors that contributed to that? And what are your observations of that? And how might it inspire you with where you're at in your life right now? Or maybe with that area or a different area. Hopefully that matters. Hopefully it means something to you. I know that this work has just been really eye-opening for me, and to take it back to what's happening astrologically, this really makes sense with this Uranus North Node Mars transit. Things need to change, and kind of sometimes things have to break down in order to break through. And this is a great time to put things into action and to move forward in a new way towards your higher calling. So, perfect time to have this conversation. Let's end today's episode, as we do every week, with a card drawing. And we are going to use the Affirmators Love and Relationships deck. I love this deck. I find it so fun, and always the perfect message arrives at the perfect time. So we'll shuffle these cards and just see, how does the universe want to contribute to today's conversation? Wait and see. Thoughts love to wander into assumptions and race ahead into the future. But what if you told them to cool their jets and just chill for a sec? Today, you get to put your mental chatter on pause, to take a breath and simply wait and see. Wait and see how things play out before you let your mind run a marathon of imagined scenarios. Wait And you'll see that waiting and seeing was a lot more productive than wandering and worrying. Insert audible sigh of relief here. I love that card for several reasons, but one of which is because it reminds me of like every rom-com I've read over the past month. If the people would have just wait and seed instead of like acting impulsively and messing things up, they would have had happiness faster. And I think that is true for all of us. Sometimes the best thing we can do is slow down and just be more intentional with where our mind is at. And that's what mindful living is. And it really does make a big difference. Can you be perfect all the time at this? No. Is it hard to be patient sometimes when you want answers now? Yes. But is waiting and seeing a great strategy that can help you? Absolutely. And sometimes you have to, like with everything we just talked about, sometimes you're going to put plans into place and you don't know if they work right away. Sometimes you have to wait and see with any new strategy. You have to give it time and then look at the results. So with that, I will close today's episode. I just want to say thank you for joining me today. I hope to stay connected with you in the many ways that, we can connect in the universe. You can always shoot me a direct message via Instagram or even TikTok. You can find daily reminders and different astrological insights there. You can join my email list. You can download our ritual guides. You can book a reading with me. Whatever feels right for you. If there is something that I can do to help you embrace who you are, I hope you know that I am a resource. I will be back next week with a new episode. So until next time.